Oh, there it is. We live. Seed talk. Stuff to make the seeds walk. All right, we live. 7:36 Pacific Standard Time. Thanks for joining in. Let's tag some people. Let's tag some people. Let's get in this. Let's just talk about it. I want to know straight up, man, why are we were supposed to do this last week? You know how life gets caught up with us, you know what I'm saying? And we come on here on Seed Talk, you know what I'm saying, as ambassadors and activists and volunteers in our community. So life catches up with us, and if we got stuff going on, then we ain't gonna do the Seed Talk. That's just facts. Just know and understand that we doing okay. We gonna tap in. Well, we glad to be here. And at some point, man, I want to talk about how everyone's doing out there. Post pandemic, post vaccines, post mask mandates, and just check in with the Black community and see how y'all doing, man. Because it's been a rough transition for me. It's been a real rough transition, helping the community raise their children and whatnot, but in the school system. But I'm definitely looking forward to this school year being over so I can rest and rejuvenate and come back and be even better for our community and our children next year. But I wanted to talk about this Lori Harvey, Michael B. Jordan type affair. And, we don't know the ins and outs, but we can work from the peripheral, right? And we can still make some conclusions and draw some interpretations that, can reflect on our community. And what I mean by that is we don't know why they really broke up. We don't know that. And I'm not even going to try to attempt to, be like, oh yeah, I know all, no. She didn't accept the marriage proposal. It could have been anything else, a whole bunch of stuff going on. But it was my observation of the response to, like, this Black woman is supposed to accept this man's marriage proposal because he's just a nice guy, because he's kind, he's good looking, he's a heartthrob. Everybody, a lot of these women want him. It's like, why are you passing up a good thing? And then I heard everything from, this is why Black men date Black women. This is why, it doesn't pay to be a nice guy and a kind guy. Then I heard people talking about just lazy thinking, like just going back into her dating history. Okay. Yeah, there's some cringe-worthy stuff in there, but so what? So what? I mean, all's fair in consenting adults who are healthy. I don't, I hear, a lot of people bringing up, what's the thing? She dated Puff Daddy and then dated his son. Okay, so what? Okay. All right. It's not something I would do. I wouldn't date a woman and her daughter. I wouldn't do that, even if she was, age appropriate, or, I wouldn't do that. But what does that have to do with anything? It's like you're going out of your way to try to shame somebody, Sunny Delight, man. Is that what we're doing?
Ooh.
And you drink it straight from the bottle.
Oh,
I had a hard day. I don't drink.
Hey man, times is hard, man.
I don't drink alcohol. This is as low as it gets. This is low as it gets for me.
Wow.
All right, man. All right. On that note, we're not gonna
pick on Bobby. It had been rough on a lot of people lately.
We're not gonna shame Bobby for his nutritional choices, and he's stuffing something in his mouth. What are you eating? Are you eating a public defender? What are you eating right now?
Spanish rice with steak and green beans.
Okay.
I like to see a picture of that.
You'd like to see that.
But I wanted to tap in, really though, and seriously, I wanted to ask y'all the question and pass the mic around. Why do y'all think that some people are really upset with Lori Harvey for not accepting Michael B. Jordan's marriage? Like,
because they would have accepted it.
Yeah.
It's just men and women alike would have accepted the proposal. But this is what I kind of want to point out. We are Black. I'm talking about our community. I'm pretty sure there's other people out there outside of it, but we ain't worried about them. we can be so hypocritical in so many things. Okay, she turned okay. I mean, we were just talking about marriage on behind the call, but here's my thing: since when men became so pro marriage all of a sudden? Because that's the real question. Because let these men on this blue app or the black app, aka TikTok, or the rainbow app, Instagram, and the little birdie, let them tell it they don't want to get married. They feel there's no benefits for them to get married, and vice versa. Say only women trying to get married, the men ain't trying to get married. Okay, cool. So why you mad because Lori turned down a marriage proposal? You should be down with that. You should be okay with that. Y'all been anti-marriage all this time. But Lori ends up
anti-marriage. I don't think that's true. What? Just I mean,
ain't been Trisha. He ain't been around.
Oh my gosh.
And it's so funny. And another thing I was just thinking of, this just kind of shine a light on a lot of people truly don't know how to date. Or and how to truly date somebody. I think a lot of people really don't know how to do that. And I said on the other line, I said since when this situation occurred, being a good man or a good woman don't mean you're the right one. Even I had to learn that in my 32 years and counting in this world. I had to learn that myself. No one don't owe me anything because I'm nice or because I'm good. Life don't work like that. And yeah, and some of the women, I was kind of surprised by some women. I'm like, yeah, well, you're right. What does her dating history got to do with anything? Because last I checked, no one, they said that the people that they're accusing her to be with, none of them said anything about them dating her. And neither has she. So I find it so interesting how people got so much to say and so much, get out the way, and so much dialogue to something that no one ain't said a word on. And I don't expect them to say anything. Those are quite private people. I don't think they're going to say anything. They shouldn't. And I think this also blows the theory, just because you're this man with all these accomplishments and all these qualities, that don't necessarily mean you're the marriage person for this person. And as I said, when we had a conversation about it, I was saying, look, Michael B. Jordan to us average people is a 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million. So quite naturally, us average people probably will jump on it. But someone like a Lori Harvey, a Michael B. Jordan is just another boy on the street. She's in a way different reality than what we live in. And another thing, most childish 25-year-olds ain't looking to get married. I'm just being honest. They chasing the bag. They trying to stack their whole life up. It's not to say there's not any who wouldn't, but it's just that the ones I've seen getting married, they already have children. That's just what I've seen. What are you trying to say, Logic?
Yeah, real quick, my bad. I just want to say that. So that's what I mean by, you know what I'm saying, data's only as good as the questions you ask. So the comment you just now made about a 25-year-old Black woman, that's important data when you say they're not trying to get married. That's important data. When you just position that, in between Black men ain't trying to get married, but you just position it against a Black woman who's 25 years old, who's just trying to be single and be free, like, to me, like, it's an impasse in chess. Like, it cancels out. Like, you can't use the data and say, well, Black men ain't really trying to get married. Well, she ain't trying to either.
Yeah, but we're talking about Black men of all ages. We're not talking about 25-year-old Black men. I mean, I meet men in their 50s talking about, I'm not trying to get married. Like, what are you waiting for? I'm waiting for the right woman.
I mean, that's what we're referring to.
What I'm saying, well, let me get to my second point, is that's not relevant data for the situation. You have a Black man that does want to get married, and you have a Black woman who you said statistically and data-wise doesn't want to get married because of her age. But this is what I was about to say, though. You can see if you feel me on this or not. I've known Black men that want to get married under their circumstances where they have the power and they can do what they want to do. I've never known a Black man that didn't want to get married according to his circumstances because it fits into his power dynamic. Well, I have known. But they're either been married in a committed relationship didn't fit into their power dynamic, and then they got divorced. But they initially got married because it fit into their power dynamic. I'm thinking of all my homeboys. Yeah, my age. The data says, yeah, they were married. They were.
Your data is relevant based on the people that you know versus the data that we're trying to introduce based on the Black men that we know. That's not relevant. I'm not understanding.
Well,
because we're talking about marriage, what in terms of what a subset of Black men. So are we doing this based on the people we know or external data? Because if we're going to do this based on anecdotal, then we should all share.
Why wouldn't the anecdotal and intimate data that exists between me and my brothers not be important to what we're dealing with when we're dealing with different communities all over the country and all over the world? Why wouldn't that be important?
Because I just tried to introduce a data set based on the Black men that I know expressing a disinterest in marriage, and the Black men that I've attempted to date, my friends, my relatives have attempted to date that express disinterest that are over the age of 25.
Let me ask you a question. Why does that data trump the data that
I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying it does.
That's what I'm saying, but you were married to Black men though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't understand why
I'm just saying that data is just important than other data that we have to like, we can't be unbalanced. We have to say, what does that data mean that Trisha was married to Black men? So what does that mean in what we're talking about when we're talking about the intricate and unique populations and pockets and demographics that exist that are very diverse in our community?
Okay. Because I can only speak as a cisgendered woman, the recipient of said marriage proposal. So I assume you're not trying to marry the men that are telling you that, what they want in a marriage. So what they tell us, the ones that they presumably are trying to marry or pretend like they're trying to marry, may be different than what they tell their male friends.
I think it's a power dynamic no matter what, though.
Okay.
I think men want to marry when they're in power. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Got it.
And I think a lot of Black women are becoming more independent because they're understanding how to gain access to certain power, and they're figuring out we don't need to be hurt so much with allowing a man to be in charge just because he was born with a penis that he identifies with. So it's just like, no, man, we ain't really got to do that. And I get that. But I think that you will find considerable amount of data of Black men who don't want to get married because they don't get it on their terms. I may be wrong. I'm just saying, I think you will.
Okay.
Well, what do you think, Bobby?
I guess my first thought is if your conditions have to be met to be married, I have questions about whether it's marriage that you desire. If the first and most important component is that you remain the person who holds the most authority, especially if the core component of a successful marriage on average is like partnership, for example. So if you come into this with, I want to do this so long as I'm on top, I don't know that you actually want to do it. So I question that as a premise for starting off, but I don't doubt that somebody says that. I just don't know if that's legitimate. I think that's a lot like, when people say, I'll go to the party so long as it ends at a reasonable hour. Well, it's a party. It's probably not going to end at a reasonable hour. You don't want to go. That would be my first thought. So that's probably my first thought. And then my second thought kind of goes to what Precious was talking about, which is that we have everyday people talking about what extraordinary people are doing. And everyday people struggle to even understand the proportions at which these people live. So like if I take you to Red Lobster, and I think this is why that song with Jay-Z and Beyonce was entertaining, because it's like, we know they don't go to like Red Lobster, please, for those two. But if I take you to Red Lobster, the average person is like, that might be a $70 to $110 dinner. And that might come with some expectations. But when people make $6 to $10 million a year, going to Red Lobster is like going to McDonald's. So if someone says, I took them to the Maldives, that's like you taking a road trip. All the proportions are so different that when you start to comment on what this person should have done when they received this benefit, it sounds stupid because you can't actually comprehend the value of those things for those people. So that's the part of it that kind of always shocks me when people start talking about how someone should have responded to a gift, because you don't even understand what that gift meant to that person, So I think I just kind of stop my analysis when I see people who could never really truly understand what it would be like to be one of them, commenting with so much aggression about it as if they're personally affronted. Because it goes to what Precious said, that I believe there's some homoeroticism involved in it. Because it's like, oh man, if I was Lori Harvey, it's like, bruh, if you were Lori Harvey, are you serious? You're not Lori Harvey.
People are saying that.
Hell yeah.
They're saying that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You see that all the time. When I see that, my first thought is like, it's okay. Like,
if I was Lori Harvey, I would be grossed out because I think men are gross.
But I'm saying it, but they're not saying that. They're saying if they were Lori Harvey, they'd be saying yes to Michael B. Jordan. And I'm like, okay, you really did a real specific thought experiment there. Like, now it's okay that you did that. We're not going to be homophobic, but like, that's curious to me that you're willing to take it that far. Because I just stopped at that. All right, she was ungrateful. If that's how you feel, then say she was ungrateful. But you're gonna go as far as to say, if I was Lori Harvey, I'm like, bruh, you tripping right now. You're doing too much.
But what I'm saying is, when we talk about the trips to the Maldives and everything, like that inserts another, instance into that. The value we place on relationships is how much monetary, like return we can get or access to, riches or wealth that we can get. And I think, I don't necessarily think that's necessarily whack. I don't know if I want to use that word, but I just think that it's misleading. It makes it think like these people are really, really extraordinary, but all they are just people with money. Mm-hmm. Able to exaggerate and hyper focus their insecurities, their trauma, their triggers. They're the same. Like, I think the same reason why a 25-year-old, right? Mm-hmm. Lori Harvey wouldn't want to marry a 36-year-old, right? Mm-hmm. Something like that. Michael B. Jordan. It's the same reason a woman in the hood or in the community wouldn't want to marry a dude. Right. With that age differential. It has nothing to do with resources. I feel like she's gonna have a good time as and maybe he's gonna have a good time.
But you don't disagree. You're not disagreeing with me, Logic.
Okay. I'm just saying, and on top of that, why will we deny tradition after tradition and years and generations of Black marriages in our community that are predicated on Black men being leaders? That's why it's a good deal and a good idea. Like, why will we deny that and ignore that? I feel like that's a little clumsy. Like, we're not still using that same schism as a brochure of like, this is what we need to do. Like, as if Black women aren't born talking about, hey man, how we get out of this whole thing. What's that? Well, marry a Black man. Make sure you marry a good Black man. And if you don't do that, then what are you doing? And you get shamed for that. I feel like, why are we ignoring that?
So I'm not ignoring that. I'm saying that if a man's if his first priority in searching for a marriage, like an actual partner, is that he has more power than her in 2022 specifically, that's probably not gonna work.
But it's happening though. That's all I'm saying. Just be cognizant that it's happening.
Sure.
It's happening.
Sure. But I have questions about whether that's
men are going to abandon that relationship just as quick as Lori Harvey did if they can't have that access to power. They're gonna like, I'm gonna find someone who's gonna
do
give me that access. That's what I see. That's what a lot of the data tells me.
Is that qualitative data or is that quantitative data? Not that it matters, but I'm just curious.
Well, that's a good question. I think the data reveals its head in a very complicated and intricate way. I think that it reveals itself in the amount of domestic violence we have in the Black community, that there's a loss of power. And when there's a loss of power, there becomes an outreach of anger and violence to try to retain and bring and reel in that power that they feel that they're losing from a quote unquote out of control, independent woman. And I also think it reveals itself in the amount of data that says that, now I'll have to go back and specify this data because I don't know if it's Black women. The rate at which women are divorcing men as we move forward, I think that's revealing itself. So then we also have to look at the data that the majority of Black men and women marry each other.
Right. Still true.
That's facts. But I don't think we have any cultural relevant data that represents the quality of those relationships and how they're getting along under, and I know people probably aren't going to like this, under the pressure of white supremacy and oppression. Using that as a template, saying you're together, but what role does oppression, white supremacy, and all these other different isms play on your relationship? And how does that impact the quality of your relationship? How does that increase or decrease your likelihood of getting divorced or staying together? I would love to see a culturally relevant, competent Black, psychologist or researcher do that work, do that field work. Because it plays a part. I think the fact that people are saying that Lori should have stayed with him at 25 and he's 36, 37 because he's a nice and kind guy and ain't got no record like, these other cats who are Black, is telling. I think that's induced by trauma. I think that's induced by oppression, saying that she owes him something. For what? Even if the commentary says he owes her a marriage, for what? Why? Why do you owe her a proposal? Why? What's our template? I think it's Christian Puritan, European value systems. Okay, I mean, people can say, well, here he goes, there he goes. Malcolm Farrakhan, there we go. We knew he was going to get here.
I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, and that makes perfect sense about the power dynamics you just said. That's so true. And because one thing I've learned so far in dating, in my personal experience, if one I've noticed, I'm just speaking for myself. If they can't control you with their resources, or they can't control you with their opinions of you, they're more likely going to go to the right. That's just my personal opinion.
Double entendre, but precious.
Huh?
You just hit us with the double entendre.
No, she didn't. It was a slip.
That was just the accent. You said that opinion.
Oh, my bad. I sounded bad. My bad. Sorry if I confused you. But yes, that's what I've noticed in my own personal experience. Yeah, if they can't control you with their resources or their opinions of you, more than likely they're going to step aside. I've seen it happen several times. And I didn't know it till years later. Till I got older, I realized that was the case. So yeah, the power dynamic is definitely You actually you had to hit on the dead on the nail with that one, Logic.
I don't know. I want to go to Doc, and then I want to go to some of these comments. What you think, Doc?
I don't think you want to go to me. I'm just kidding.
Oh no, go ahead.
Go.
Oh my God, there's so many things.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So first, when there's an age differential, I think you're all making an assumption that there's still this power and control by the older male. I'll have to do anecdotal evidence on this one. As someone who is the child of a 30-year age gap in a marriage, 30 years before they had me, my mother, when I was in my 20s and thinking that I needed to get married, she was always, well, you got two things you can do. You can either play games and take someone's husband, or you can find an older man, because if you find an older man, then you can run things. That was, he'll be so happy to have you. My father, yes, he brought home, the money, he took care of the family, but my mother ran that household because younger woman, he needed her youth to, I don't want to say control she ran the relationship. That was her relationship, to decide that they were together. And the minute that she was like, I'm done with this, she could leave. So an older man may think that they can control a younger woman, but I guess it depends on that window when they find them. I think that she should have taken the with Lori Harvey, the marriage proposal. It's just another indication that the bar is in hell for Black women, that we're expected no matter what. Hey, you have to be the backbone. You've got to take every man, every project. It's possible for two people just not to get along. I don't know what's wrong with when people look at relationships. Maybe two people just don't get along. They don't belong together. And that's it. No one has to be evil. No one did anything wrong. It's just they didn't work out. But no, we always have to have a villain when, people don't work out. So, and I think that we as a people are projecting a lot of our own insecurities onto their relationship. So I like to listen to what people find so problematic about the two of them, because it's often telling. Then I can tell either what type of relationship they had or they expect to have. Marriage is not this, wonderful solution to everything. It still requires work, and it requires that two people get along. They have the same goals, and a 25-year-old and a 35-year-old probably have different goals. And I mean, it's better that they broke up without a divorce, or without kids or anything. But it's just really telling when I hear the different reasons that people ascribe to, why they broke up and whose fault it is. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I don't think it was any of their faults. I really don't. I think that and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at this as objectively as I can, like as a person who's been in a 12, dated, all the way up until I was 21, 22. I got married at 22, 23, was in a 12-year marriage. And then I've been single and, had some relationships, you know what I'm saying, for the past 11 years, and want to get back into, marriage. It's like, there was nothing done wrong. I don't see anything done wrong.
Me neither.
I'm not going to deny all the possible. See, look, here's the deal. Let me go back. So maybe I didn't explain when I was moving in and out, of the Lori Harvey and Michael B situation in our community. Well, I was trying to use that as a template, and then moving into our community, and then acknowledging the fact of how we move. I educate, 1,700 young adults who are going to be a part of our adult, population. Times 11. That's how many adults, future adults, I've dealt with, approximately, you feel me? because I got some of them, multiple years because I have them for 4 years. But the point I'm trying to make is I'm seeing every day this power dynamic working out, at least in the Pacific Northwest, with Black children, with human beings. They're working off this power dynamic. That not only the male or masculine or alpha presenting person gets the power. I think all those are pseudosciences. I think those are all social pseudosciences. However, that's what we're dealing with. We're still dealing with masculinity rules, patriarchy rules, sexism or internalized sexism or misogyny or misogynoir rules. And people are trying to grab that brick of gold in that relationship. They're trying to beat the other person to that brick of gold. And the brick of gold represents control of that relationship. I know y'all done heard, the person who likes the other person more is the person who's at a deficit. I know y'all heard that before. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've all heard that before, except for Trisha.
I've heard it, but it's not true. I mean, once you've been married for a while and I guess have some tread on your tracks, you realize that that's not true. But yeah.
The fact that it is a brick of gold to chase the other person for is all you need. Whether you think it's true or not, if other people say it's true and they're like, I can't like this person a little bit more than they do because they're going to be in control. Like we were raised on men are from Mars and women are from Venus. I'm like, we cannot deny these peripheral influences that have an impact on our relationships. That's all I'm saying. And I doubt very seriously, even though I do not know the intricacies of Lori Harvey and Michael B. Jordan's relationship, I think I'm pretty smart enough to say that some of these societal influences, and isms, expectations are playing a role in how their relationship turned out. And I think that we should pay attention to that as we move forward when we are trying to build community and try to figure out how can we not fall victim, to, those type of things. And that's why I wanted to go down here because hold on a second. There was an interesting because Carmelita asked a question. Hold on a second. She asked the question, what does that look like from an African perspective? and I don't know if everyone can answer that, you know what I'm saying? But is that something even plausible? Is that something realistic or is that even something that, other members of the panel think that should be a desired goal? Like, how do we look at it from a African perspective? Our pre-colonial perspective? Or should we just start anew? Maybe it's a combination of both.
Perhaps I think starting anew probably would be best because we're in a different time now. We're in a different space and time when it comes to matters of men and women. So that's why I've always found it strange that having power or authority was based on a gender or race. I find that so strange. Even now, I still find that so strange that I've always looked at it. Instead of going by that metric, why don't you go by who is the most skilled or who have the most experience or someone who's capable of handling a certain spot? Because I may be weak in some areas, I may be stronger in other areas, and vice versa. So it's just like if I'm better at money, that shouldn't offend you. That should be like, okay, good, you're better at it. I'll focus on this part instead. Great. Like we're still like that's why I don't believe in the whole 50-50 thing. It's 100% you're giving when you're in a relationship.
Can I ask you a question, Precious?
Yes, sir.
Your parents are married, right?
legally divorced, but they're still together for now 45, 46 years.
But you watched, so you saw this dynamic growing up?
Yes. Actually, yes. Yes. Like let's see. My mom was the money hand. My mom is very, very good with money. I have to admit, I wish I had her money skills like hers. Her money skills is definitely on point. My dad was my mom said the first 13 years of their marriage, she didn't work. My dad provided everything. But of course, some things happened that she had to get up to get a job to support the family. And of course, that made her go to school to advance her education, because at that time, we're talking about late 80s, early 90s, it wasn't that many opportunities that really pay well. And I think I said this in another video with Carmelita and Trisha, that it's so funny how many, that's why I'm tired of seeing this question, who gets the plate first, the husband or kid. I find it such a stupid question, because everyone's household is different. Because my dad a lot of times didn't come home in time because he was still working or he was doing whatever. So we went and ate our food. And there were times our dad did cook dinner. He still do to this day and bring our plates to us. So I just find it so interesting that it's such a strong dynamic based off the gender, when it could be, hey, who feel like cooking today? Who feel like cleaning today? And it goes to whoever, up for the job. So yeah, I find a lot of the quote unquote traditional stuff kind of weird, but that's just me and my upbringing.
Why do we think that's not an African-centered perspective, though? That's my thing. That's my question. Because we lived a certain way before colonialism.
Yeah. But who got that information to know to truly implement that? Can we ask somebody today who actually goes by that we can, look and say, you know what, I like this idea, or I like this approach when it comes to my relationship or marriage?
Well, there's a term for it. There's a term called egalitarian, and we get the term egalitarian from actually pre-colonial African experiences and perspectives. So they learn from us. I mean, I don't know. They did. I mean, every single time, like, I get on this dang show, I be telling you, like, he's like, I like my odds, with using every single member in my community and my family for the strengths that they were. Like, you break into my house, it's home. It ain't gonna be like, hey, everybody. No, I like my odds. If you come into my house, everyone's
lit up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know the gun. I'm just saying, I like my odds though.
Accent coming out.
Yeah, I don't. Everyone's getting them in. We're all getting it in. It ain't gonna be it's not gonna be none of that. So I don't know. I just think that we gotta work with benefits, our community. As long as it's healthy and conducive to the growth of the people involved in the marriage and the community the married people are a part of. Yeah, I see that.
Absolutely.
It just sounds like logic. You're saying that we got to get back to our ways. Now, you're going to have to inform me on what our ways were, because I don't have that information. I haven't read that. I don't know what our ways were before. But when you speak of egalitarianism and the dynamics that Precious and I are kind of discussing, is this idea of people in a relationship that choose to be in it, and on a day-to-day basis, different people have different roles and different levels of power. I think that's part of the reason why my first response was what it was, because it doesn't make sense for me to enter into a situation and go, I'm going to be in control all the time. I don't even want to be in control all the time. There's moments where I would like to have control, right? But those are the moments where I say, hey, no, I think I want to lead us on this. And then I have the same respect for my partner. If she wants to take the lead on something, it's fine. And you can even go as far as to say, oh, well, you're ceding that power. Okay, well, then she's ceding that power too. And I think that if you are drunk, I guess, on white supremacy, and you say, well, no, I need to have this control all the time, then it is going to be a challenge moving forward because of everything that we talked about. I mean, Precious is probably not going to go into details, but I would be willing to bet that when her mom got that education and she got more options, that there was a change after that. I would bet.
Oh, yeah,
I would bet money
Hit a
on.
bit on the nail.
That's what's happened at a macro level with our entire community.
Absolutely.
As soon as
definitely co-sign that. Absolutely.
as soon as people get opportunities, whether it be male or female, those opportunities beget, financial resources. And then, like you said, now we have these domestic violence outcomes because people can feel the tide changing. I agree with that logic. I really do. But at the same time, that's why I think it's so important that we don't kind of slip into the old ways. Or when I say old ways, I mean traditional American values for our community specifically, because you can say this about white folks. The power dynamic has not changed for white folks ever, because white men have remained dominant in terms of salary above their women for the entire time, right? But
correct.
Black people, it's different.
That's why I think it's you wanted me to tell you the main reason.
We know we got all the answers already on all the things that have happened in the last 40
No,
years.
That's not what I. Bobby, stop.
Just saying.
I said, do you want to know why I think that is?
Go ahead.
Because white people are genetically recessive.
You have to explain
allowing the freedom of their people to go against them being secluded and protecting their gene pool means that will be the destruction of them genetically. So they have to keep some kind of structure, whether it's miscegenation, whereas the myth of a supreme Aryan race, to maintain their existence on this earth, which means they actually have to be parasitic also in nature. They can't afford to mix and breed with other people because they're genetically inferior. That's a scientific fact.
Okay. But are you also saying that plays a role in between, the inner group, in between males and females within that subset of the population? Because I think what I'm trying to differentiate,
if they allow their women to go do that, then they're going to be genetically annihilated.
Period. Because they'll have different options.
Absolutely. That's why they have miscegenation. That they're literally killing Black men.
Yeah.
Wait, hold up. Repeat that last point. I'm sorry.
They were literally killing Black men for having sex with white women.
Absolutely, yes.
Like Hitler had straight Aryan, had this myth of this supreme Aryan race because that's what they do. They fear their destruction. So they keep things, at their status quo, and they're able to do that.
Right.
Because they know that they'll be genetically annihilated. And then we sit there and we try to do the same thing, and it works to our disadvantage.
Absolutely. That's all I was getting at. That's all I was getting at. It doesn't work because our dynamics are different.
Yeah.
But also because as soon as someone is conscious enough to realize, like you see people talk about this all the time, your great grandma stayed married for 75 years, but your great grandma couldn't do much about it. But now the women can. And so when we have those different choices and we raise our sons as if they're their grandfathers, which I think is a large part of what's going on, we're leading ourselves to a path of destruction on a communal level. That's just my belief. That's my belief, but you might have a different view.
How are we leading ourselves to a path of destruction?
I think that marriage as an institution, even if you say it's dying, if you just look at King County and single parent households financially, Black people are so far behind that even if you're not married, just having that second income in the house is absolutely vital. I mean, $37,000, this was like 2 or 3 years ago, compared to their white and Asian peers that were in the $77,000 and $90,000 range. That has consequences for healthcare, that has consequences for education, that has consequences for resume building for your children and allowing them to pursue their dreams. Like, it's hard to do it without resources. It's real hard. So I think it's deadly on that level, even if it doesn't have some sort of racial context like you're talking about with going extinct, even if it's not like that. I think that there's definitely consequences financially that put you at a disadvantage, put your children at a disadvantage moving forward in time. But like you would always say, bad marriages are not good for kids either.
Mm-mm.
It's not.
What you think, Doc?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things that have consequences for kids, including adults or two adults having all of their children together versus one man having several children in many different homes. So it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact that, and I know data means different things for different people, but we have a situation where, I mean, Black men are the least likely to marry of any man in the US, I'll say in the US. And yet it's just hard to juxtapose that reality with the fact there's so many opinions on what marriage should look like. I mean, I think marriage, that should be between the two people and should look like whatever it needs to look like for them, what they need to negotiate. Not that they need to necessarily look historically on which of our ethnic groups should pattern their marriage in the 21st century too. And it's also difficult to balance the fact like there are many different forms of marriage, or were many different forms of marriage on the continent. So I prefer, like, one of my groups is Bube. I would prefer theirs because they were monogamous, but they were a very small ethnic group there versus like my Hausa ancestors. I know they believed in polygamy. So it's all over the place. I don't know.
I'm with you. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think that
whatever works for two people.
I think that to piggyback on what you said, then we should stop comparing ourselves when it comes to who's likely to marry and not marry to other races. Then I think we should just throw that out. Like, who cares? Like, stuff means different for different races based on their historical trauma and the stuff they need to address.
Well, it matters for our kids that are being raised. That's why
I don't think white people's kids are being raised any more better because their men marry more than us.
Well, they'll have more generational resources based on the fact they've been married to maybe one.
No data that says they're better people, though. There's no data.
I didn't say they're better people. I'm talking about in terms of generational resources to be successful here in this capitalist place. So in order to be successful here.
See, that's what I'm saying. I think that's what I have a problem with. I have a problem at the end. It is all about to be more successful in a capitalist economy rather than being a better person. I think we need to change the dynamic on how we can be a better person first and still have success financially in this capitalist system. I think we fail every single time when we say we're going to put how much we can make, according to capitalism. And we always seem like we put at a lower premium, and a standard of like the kind of people we are and how we treat each other. But then again, we'll come back and say, well, the reason why white people, are so successful because they get along better than us. It makes no sense.
That's a damn lie.
And that's not what we're saying. I mean, it's easier to be a good person if you don't have to worry about burying your parents when they die because you don't have any money. That's the kind of thing. It's easier to be a good person and concentrate, those hierarchy of needs, that if you're able to feed your family or not worry about, will my children be able to eat if I die or if I leave? So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, leaving something for your children. So 2-parent household that they all have children from the same 2 parents, that they're married, that they're able to build something. So at least they'll have their basic needs met, because right now there's a large percentage of our community that's not at that basis. So I'm not saying that everybody, get married and you'll have billionaires for children. No, that's not. I'm talking about just to meet your basic needs and your children's basic needs so they can be successful in terms of reaching those other needs of being good people. Yeah.
I think we need to figure out how we can take care of each other as good people and not sacrifice that premium and that value by, always scurrying after money and whatnot. And I think it can be done. I think it has to be done community by community. We have to have some pilot communities to do it. And I think they're actually hiding those communities from us. I think there's a lot of communities out there, if we did the research, that are actually doing it. I really do. But I think we have to find out, like, just like people are finding out, like, hey, there really was a Black Wall Street. But it really wasn't the only one. It was really like dozens of them all over the country. You can get a map. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you think that, just imagine if that's news to people in 2022. Imagine what's news to us that's been hidden. We can grow our own food. We can
I'm looking at Lisa Michelle's comment, which is actually a very interesting. Capitalism dictates relationships, who people marry. That is a fact.
Absolutely.
Some people are married and tolerating one another, but choose to stay together because of the dynasty they have built.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, that is 100% factual, and that's kind of what's gonna be one of my point of action. But yes, what she said is absolutely factual. Absolutely, that is true. And that's what I've always said, that most people, that's why I say people tend to marry in the same social economic circle that they're in. Majority of the time, they very rarely do they marry out, especially white people. But we ain't talking about them. Most people do marry within their social economic bracket. That's a fact. Matter of fact, I want to say it's kind of across all races. I could be wrong. I think that's across because like they didn't have a caste system. And they broke it down to me how they marry or choose their partner. It's very interesting how they go about that. It's a whole a caste system they go by. It's very interesting. But yeah, what she said is shit. That's dead on the nail. I can't even. That's it right there. Lack of resources, money, and our community create conditions to tear away at it. That's another thing. Yes.
I wonder how many people in the United States know what Joaquin Garrett or Joaquin Allah is doing here in Seattle with Africa Town, because that's a great pilot. It's a great model of how you take resources, you know what I'm saying, and you bind them together with a group of people and you have an emphasis and focus and you use, resources that are out there to build that community. I mean, it's kind of similar to what they did in what we call Little Saigon here in Seattle, or the International District, or what they call Chinatown. A lot of people don't really understand the data around that, is that they're one of the populations that, don't vote. They vote the least.
The Asians?
Yeah. They vote. If you ever sat down and you did the history on the Chinatowns in America, first of all, you would see that they're run by, a specific underground. But they have their own banking systems. They don't put their stuff in the banks. They have their own political systems and things of that nature. And now I know it comes to a point where we can't compare ourselves to them because they still have their language. They have some cultural values. They came here as immigrants. They didn't come here as stolen property. I get it. But I'm saying that how many people know about Africa Town? I wonder. Yeah. And what Joaquin is doing, because that's a great pilot. That's a great template. So using your community, using your home. And I admire the brother. I salute that brother, what he's doing, because he's showing you how to do it. And he's not only using community resources amongst the people on the grassroots level, he's also using resources given out by the government. I mean, this brother, just Google him. Just do the research yourself. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a template of what we can be doing. But you know what? Let's just be honest. We could be doing a lot more in our own homes. I got 3 people living in this home. We ain't had a family meeting in a minute. We could be doing a lot more when it comes to that kind of stuff. So let's not act like we couldn't be doing more in our own homes. Have a person that's growing a garden. Like we can't have, our old Susu fund, here in the house where we, doing cooperative economics and putting our loose change into a bucket and having like a monthly allowance of and what we saving up for, or investing in real estate or something like that. That's what my son and I are talking about doing. But let's not act like we couldn't be doing more in our homes. I know I can be. I'm not going to speak for none of y'all. Y'all can speak for yourself. I know I can. Yeah. Yeah. She said many don't know about Africa Town in Alabama. That. Yeah. 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 I know the one brother. What's the one brother's name? God, I can't remember the brother's name. What's the brother who be going out? Anderson. What's this? Claude Anderson. Claude Anderson tried to start the African Town and back in the day. And then you had who was it? Cujo. Straight from Africa. No. I'm telling you, man, y'all got to be doing these research on these people's names, man. They be stealing our names. Cujo started the first African Town. And it got destroyed. So I think that's what Carmelita's referring to. If you want marriage, then find someone else who does. If not, live and let live. It's really that simple. Compatibility is important, but eyes wide open choice is really what it's all about, and not deceiving your partner. Okay. That sounds ideal, but I think that finances have a part to play in that. I'm not denying that at all.
Oh my gosh.
Well, what does compatibility mean, though? You need to define that too.
That is true.
Yeah. Look up the Africa Town. Look up Claude Anderson. Look up Cujo. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with Will Ryder, but I'm just saying, what does compatibility look like? I mean, you could be emotionally compatible with someone, but the fact that you're not financially compatible with someone could ruin the whole thing.
So Logic, I'll try to follow you. You kind of lost me a little bit. So we're talking about marriage, and I referenced like, okay, 2-parent household because finance, right? And then you said we got to change our metric. But then you went to the family meeting and you talked about what you were going to do with the resources you pulled. And you talk about what Africa Town is doing, which is ultimately an exploitation of capitalism as well. So are we allowed to use that as a model? Or are we not allowed to use that as a model? Because I don't understand the in and out with that. Because like for me, it's, and we talked about this before, those are the rules of the game. We play by them. I respect people doing what they got to do. Within that, you could talk about the challenge of ethics within it, but that's what we're doing, and I get it. But what I don't get is how sometimes it's relevant and sometimes it's not relevant. That's where I'm struggling with some of your content tonight. So
that's a good question, and my answer to that question is that I'm going to ask you another question: is why did you make it completely binary? Why did you say either use it or you're not? That's not what I said.
Well, no, because I personally want you to tell me how to do it in a non-binary way. I'm listening. I want to be taught because I don't understand the way to be one foot in, one foot out. Because the nearest analogy I can draw is when we had a conversation with Trisha about having a rental property. And I told her, if you want to work for God, but do not think you're going to work for God and be profitable, because it ain't going to work. And I told her that, and I meant it, and I still believe it. Because
I learned the hard way. Thank you.
I believe that.
A couple weeks ago.
Because either you're renting and you want to help people, or you want to be a landlord and you want to make money. But it's going to be hard for you to help people and make money. Now, if you get a contract from the government that pays the rent, okay, fine. There you found your non-binary solution. But for the most part, I'm curious how you do that.
Yeah. And I'll first say that I can't do any justice to what King is doing better than him, because he can tell you how he's doing it. But I will say, as an outsider looking in, a perfect example is if we have resources that are available to us from the government, right, in the city of Seattle. If I have a choice to put it into something that's just going to fit a cookie cutter, you know what I'm saying, shape of what's already been done, or I can start something called Africa Town. I'm going to choose African Town. I'm going to choose red, black, and green over red, white, and blue. I'm going to choose the principles of Kwanzaa to run our community rather than the principles of white supremacy and white standards of beauty. I'm going to use respectable, qualified members of the Black community that look like me instead of using, just handpicked people by the white power structure to run our community. I'm going to paint red, black, and green on the streets to commemorate and landmark Black people in the Central District and let people know we were here. I'm going to be a custodian of the culture of the Central District, which is the oldest historical community in Seattle, instead of just going along to get along and gentrifying everything and getting what I can get and leaving the culture behind. I'm going to use the resources available to me, because I know there's a lot, to be culturally identifiable and unique, and to be recognized and celebrated on a regular basis. I'm not going to just go with the flow. I know he can do way more justice than I just now did, but he's not using the resources. It's Africa Town.
I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm not
No,
sure.
what I'm saying is that's how you become, not just like, it just doesn't become binary. If I give you $100,000, you have a choice to go with the flow, or you have something to be unique and use the principles of like Kwanzaa or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the red, black, and green instead of the red, white, and blue. You have a choice to abandon the Moja Fest and just give in to just the torchlight parade or bumper shoot.
So this is tough. And here's the reason. And I'm not going to make this comparison with you personally, but I'm just going to make a point about what happens when corporations do what you're talking about. We hammer them. We absolutely kill them. Starbucks and these different corporations do this, where they try to mold between, I guess, what I'll call gross capitalism and social responsibility. And when it's not done, or when the wrong people do it, we as a community reject it outright. Like,
and I will ask you this:
mm-hmm.
How many Black people who have been displaced from the CD are able to come back to the CD with housing because of Starbucks?
I can't answer that question.
And I bet you King will blow your mind of how many displaced Black people that he has been able to retain in the Central District and fight gentrification because of his way that he's utilized the resources. My daughter was one of the recipients.
Yeah, no, that I think what he's doing is great. I'm not blasting him.
I don't think it's a fair comparison, because I don't think Starbucks is trying to retain and be anti-gentrification.
Right. You just have to have a well-intentioned person with resources. That's what it sounds like. They gotta truly care. They gotta truly care.
What you think, Doc?
Unmute. I'm trying to look at this in a linear fashion so that we went from marriage to financial advantages of marriage. And then I think it was building legacy through marriage for your progeny. And then to the African origins of marriage. Then to I think I lost a step. When another thing that I was just thinking about, which has to circles back to Lori Harvey and marriage. It's kind of interesting that her turning down this proposal compels this discussion on marriage as if it's indicative of something going on in our community or reflects a certain way on Black women or on Black men. and yet we have people like Future and Nick Cannon. Does that lead then to a discussion on that having children isn't important to be married? I don't. What does that say then about another demographic? I understand that this was popular to discuss their relationship and it breaking up. I just hope in the end it doesn't mean that we're making any general, or it doesn't really say anything about the state of marriage in our community or the importance of it. Because like what Bobby was saying earlier, there are wealthy people in and Precious, a different sort of environment than the majority of Black people are. I don't know. I should have brought Precious. I need one of your charts for tonight because I need a chart. Chart.
You started out by saying you started off linear.
A roadmap.
That was why I was thinking was one of the biggest obstacles to us understanding this is not linear. It's not left and right. It's not binary. It's circular. It's circular. What that looks like in marriage, how I would say it is this. I would say you have the institution of marriage, but it doesn't have to be done from a white supremacist, standard. It could be however you want it to look at, and how you accumulate resources and funds to move forward financially is up to you. How you manage your relationship is up to you. How you address your past traumas and your trigger, and address how you are both, oppressed by the same system is up to you. But it's predicated on building blocks, like, being Black Legos. Like, let's build on top of each other and what we have, rather than, going with the same ideology of, European standards of success, that we are to be individuals. I would think that if all of us in this room, whether we're married or we're single, we would have a plan to build community. That in some kind of way, I know it sounds corny and cliche, that we will be married together as a community, and that we would get along, and it would be the same process as two people individually married or whatever it looks like. It would be the same conditions for a community, death do us part, or whatever you want to say. Like, I'm just using those as cliche vows. It would be the same thing. Like, I'm married to this relationship. I'm married to our friendship. I'm married to our panel. I'm married to Seed Talk. And what does that look like if we break up? Like, the breakup shouldn't be like, and I don't want to say we just be talking, but we be planting seeds, Just imagine if it had a financial aspect to it. Just imagine if it had an actual institution building outside of a podcast to it. And that's what we got to, prepare ourselves to and ask ourselves, like, what's the next steps in this? And I think it's institution building. But, I think our main problem is institution building. I think that's our main problem. We don't have institutions. And I'm not saying it's because of our own doing. It's because of a lot of undoing too. But I think we need our own institutions. We just don't have them.
Carmelita has a question for Bobby in the comments.
Precious said, okay, meanwhile, Carmelita has a question.
I was reading a comment and I kind of got lost. I'm like, oh man, we all over the place. Let me just sit back and watch.
This is kind of all over the
place.
Oh, well, he already
how do you build in terms of the impact imposing them.
Imposing them as
Yeah, that's a good question. I think
so
that's
so I'll try to connect it. So like if you think about marriage as a financial institution, then bail, I think of bail as almost the antithesis of it, the thing that robs you the swiftest. If you're trying to encourage somebody to come to court, and the idea is that if they don't come, there's some amount of money they're not going to get back, but their innocence or lack thereof is still in question, then obviously on some level there's an ethical issue there. The reason why I say that is I can take any of you. So if Logic is accused of a crime and Logic FTAs or fails to appear to his first hearing, and let's just say that like so many other people, he gets evicted and then he moves to a different apartment, so he doesn't get notice of his hearing. He doesn't get notice of his hearing, so he doesn't show up, or the public defender has too many clients, they don't call him, or they call him late, so he doesn't get adequate notice. He doesn't show up. Judge says, okay, I'm going to have a cash bond, bail, $500. Now, in this country where people live check to check, that $500 could be the reason he gets evicted a second time and doesn't get his second notice. So now he's going to have a second bond for another $500. Now, these are for misdemeanors. So now he owes the court $1,000. So he owes the court $1,000. He may or may not have an attorney to file a motion to quash this. Okay. So now he hires an attorney. He has to pay the retainer fee. If it's public defender, maybe it's $10, but if it's private attorney, it could be $5,000. So now he's out $5,200 or whatever my first, cash bail amount was. All this, and he might be innocent. So that's problematic. I prefer the retain or no retain based on community safety paradigm. So if I ask to retain the defendant, I understand that what I'm requesting is for this person to miss a mortgage payment. I understand that. I know that. When I ask for it, that means that I think that this person is so dangerous that I'm willing to risk whatever their personal property is. And I know that I'm asking for that when I ask to detain somebody. The fact that everybody who asks for detention doesn't consider that when they're asking for it is a problem. If you're not willing to have somebody miss a mortgage payment, miss a car payment, get evicted, then don't ask for don't ask to detain. That's my position.
Yeah, she said I asked that to highlight the importance of finances in our communities and our households and how the system seeks to strip us of any resources we have. Thank you for that answer. It does all the above. Yeah.
But that also goes to a question that was asked or a point that was made earlier. And I think that this is the part that's important in terms of the overall questions that we talked about tonight regarding the two people that we discussed. If people are going to say there's this lack of eligible, Black men in the community because of crime, like Logic was talking about earlier, this is the kind of thing that drives that conversation. The fact that if you could find somebody who you care about, and then for whatever reason they're accused of a crime, whatever you were building with them can be destroyed that easily. And this is exactly why Logic's point about comparing relationships across demographics is problematic, because not every community is affected by the cash bail system the same way. And so you could look at some percentage, and it might be a very small percentage of people who their relationship would have been successful if not for this intervention by the criminal justice system, because obviously financial stress is the thing that leads to the most marriages if we were to look at statistics. So nothing is easy. Nothing is simple. Everything is complicated. And I think that tonight's show, for everybody who was watching, was hard to follow. And it was hard to follow because marriage is a personal thing. I believe this in my heart. It's a personal thing. When we try and extrapolate people's relationships that we don't know onto everybody, it becomes even more complicated because the comparisons don't always work. So if you're watching tonight and you were like, damn, these people talking about everything under the sun, you're right. We were not the easiest to follow. So I apologize for that. I really do.
We ain't gonna apologize for planting seeds.
I apologize, but I'll say this:
you have breadcrumbs, bro.
the takeaway for me is always the same thing when we talk about families, which is anything that you can do to be more active in your children's life is a good thing. So if that's marriage,
if you have
children, if that's marriage, then so be it. If you're a single person and you can mentor somebody, or you can, be a third parent for two people who are struggling in a marriage, so be it. But we have to provide love and support for our children, whether it's through marriage or other means. And if we do that, then guess what? Our marriages will be, the next round of marriages for our community will be better. So that's really all I can say about it.
Yeah, that's your plan of action right there.
That is.
I'll definitely second that. I'll piggyback at that. If we just start with our children and creating an alternative value system where we can love each other, stay out of the criminal justice system, and put a high value on, treating people how we want to be treated and seeing ourselves and other people and serving the you and them, then I think we're doing a lot better. Just from that. I see it every single day in the schools, man. Like, the pandemic set us back. It might have set us back a couple of decades. Seriously. I'm serious. Like, there's the amount of addiction that our children have with these vape machines now and devices. The amount of social and soft skills that they lost. Our emphasis does need to be the children. And that it doesn't even mean like, being harder on them, putting your hands on them. Just, give them some tutorials and showing them how to love. Loving themselves first. What y'all think, Precious? Dot, plan of action.
The plan of action for me is kind of what I said earlier. Being a good person, whether you're a man or woman, doesn't mean you're the right one for somebody. And you should be okay with that. Most dating experiences or relationships you end up in, it's not all the time going to end in marriage. And that's okay as well. The point of dating is to learn what makes, if y'all have any compatibility between each other. Do y'all have the same ideas? Like, you got to learn what you can from that relationship. And then if that person just don't work out for you, just go on to the next person. I don't see an issue with dating. I mean, technically how Lori going about that technically is how you're supposed to date. And I think many of us been dating wrong for a long time. Even myself can admit that I've dated wrong, but I have definitely gotten better with it. And I know with this conversation and reading the comments for our show, it kind of just puts, in this situation alone, kind of puts light that there's actually, just based off the reaction of people in this situation, just goes to show there are people who are willing to stay in a relationship. They have no chemistry with somebody. They have no intimacy with this person. You have nothing in common with this person. Y'all don't even like each other, but you'll stay in it purely for the convenience and just to say you're in a relationship. And I think that's a horrible thing and a horrible reason to stay in a relationship with somebody, whether you date them for 6 months or you with them for 10 years or what have. I think that's a terrible idea. And back to the kids see those things. And they process those things and think, well, because this person doing this and that, I'm not gonna stay in this relationship. No, there's more to being happy than just what they can provide for you. Also got to really look at the tangibles of it. So I think people really need to look at themselves, and if they were mad at this, ask yourself, why are you mad at this? And we got to be careful trying to live our lives vicariously through our favorite celebrity couples. We don't know these people. We'll never be in the same room as these people or the same circles. If you don't like how they move or whatever, guess what? Don't do it in your relationship. Don't do it in your marriage if you don't like how they handle things. Everyone is different. And that's really all I got. I mean, you take what you like and you leave and the thing you don't like, throw it in the trash. And that's all I got.
That's a word. Good job. What you think, Doc, to finish us off tonight?
I agree with what Precious said in terms of plan of action, that dating is not the same as being married or engaged. We jump too fast from dating. Automatically, you have to couple up, and then the next logical step is marriage. No, dating is looking at your options. It's interviewing. It's interviewing for a potential long-term or short-term partner. It's not about coupling up automatically. I also think the most important community that you build is the community you build at home first. So with a relationship with one person as a solid foundation to build community outside of your home. Because if you don't have your act together at home with your partner, or with, if you decide, because not all marriages have children, if you decide to bring children to that marriage, but most importantly, if you can't build a good relationship with one individual, you have no business running out trying to build community with multiples, because you can't get your act together in that respect. So try and model what it is at home, what you would like to see in the broader community. And also, I'm trying to remind people that one celebrity relationship is not indicative of all relationship. This says nothing about Black women. It says nothing about Black men. It also doesn't mean, for celebrities, if they have one bad experience with one type of person, means that they never will date that type of person. That's ridiculous. That's like stereotyping. That's like you had a bad relationship with one guy that had a mustache. I'm never dating a man with a mustache again. I don't blame her for going out with. That's ridiculous. We're adults. We shouldn't also stereotype.
And let me also add, stop shaming somebody because they didn't accept something that you would have accepted.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a thing called boundaries too. Some people don't mind their boundaries being crossed.
Yeah.
Some people do mind it. So can I say a lot of people say, well, I would have done it. Okay, that's you speaking for you, sweetie. Me speaking for me or any other person.
Yeah.
That's been pissing me off for the past few months. You can accept that.
You can say no. And so what? You don't have to say yes to every engagement opportunity. I hope women say no, that you don't take the first one that. Yeah, if you're married, okay? I've lost count of.
I gotta hire somebody to ask Deanna before me. I gotta hire somebody to ask Deanna before me to get that first one out the way.
No, like you were the first person she ever dated, and then it's like, no, during the dating phase, yeah, you should have decided. And just also, that's another thing. Just because people are dating doesn't mean that they are getting buck wild and throwing it down with all of them. Dating, and even if they are, so what? But regardless, that's two people. What they decide to do, leave them alone. Do your own thing.
I agree.
You don't like it, don't do it.
And focus on your own relationships. And nobody's time is being wasted. Okay, it's a wasted time if you didn't learn something from the experience.
Yeah,
that's just me.
I also think our plan
of competition. It's like,
no. All right, we done though. We done.
I also think action should be taking this to Clubhouse. I ain't been on Clubhouse in a minute, but I think this platform will be really good on Clubhouse.
Man, Clubhouse is toxic as hell. I just joined with a friend. Like literally just last week, my friend added me to this Clubhouse. And I'm like, damn, this is toxic as hell. I like my podcast is way better than
it depends on you gotta get your mute on. Mute. Nope, you can't talk.
But yeah, anyway. I'll probably get muted all the time. So you know what, this may not be for me. I'll probably get booted out and muted all the time.
Throw you to the gulag, as they always say.
Doc, have you been on Clubhouse?
I only go on that for genealogy now because those discussions are nice.
What about you, Bobby?
It's hard. I don't know what it is.
It's hard. Oh, it's hard
to get it's like TikTok kind of, but you're really talking like what, like instead of like in a chat, everybody's talking like a big group of people talking about a particular subject.
Yeah.
And there is a chat going on, but most people are really talking and exchanging ideas.
1-800 numbers used to call back in the day, like the party lines back in the day.
I used to call party lines now. I don't think
you did. You told me.
No, that never happened.
That sound like before my time.
Listen, hey, what we gonna talk about next week, man? We gotta keep this popping. We gotta stay on point, you know, and keep the pattern going, you know, keep the tradition once a week. What y'all want to talk about next week?
I'm not sure, Trisha. Are we on for this next other? Are we staying on? Are you guys something to do?
No, we can stay on. His set is probably like 90 minutes. We can stay.
Okay, then. All right, cool. Because there's a particular topic I want to talk about. I made a post about it, and I want to speak about fat phobia, and yeah, and I'm just gonna say it. Skinny women have such a disdain towards big women. I've been seeing that a lot in the past month. Yeah, I was like, "What's up with y'all?" Okay. Yeah, we're gonna touch on that.
All right,
I'm gonna watch that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that too. Let's talk about next week. Let's talk next week.
Like, I ain't gonna like me for the comment I'm about to make, because some of you skinny women need to get over yourselves. And I'm actually a skinny person.
Yeah, definitely shots fired.
Some of y'all really tried it.
Yeah, shots fired. What accent is that? All right, we out.
All right, see ya.
We'll see y'all next time. Make sure y'all tune in to Trisha and Precious to make the C's walk.
Yeah.
Coming out with After C Talk right now. We out.